Your expected approach time 3-4, approach button 17, the altimeter 2997.
Hello there, and welcome back to the DCS Situation Report. I'm your host, Prickly Hedgehog. Let's dive into another exciting newsletter from Eagle Dynamics this week, which features extensive changes to the open beta version of the game, including those beautiful lighting effects for the Supercarrier. We'll begin with the mention of the pretty extensive changelog this last patch, which saw numerous fixes to the core game, including AMRAMs, which apparently were too easy to notch when performing a notching maneuver inside of pitbull range. That has been solved, and they have improved range gate modeling for missiles with active radar sensors. While WAGS has been showcasing some very cool stuff with the Viper this past week or so, we can't ignore the Hornet and major improvements to the accompanying module, the Supercarrier. In this case, for the CVN 71, 72, 73, and of course 75. ED are telling us that they have added the automatic carrier landing system for the Hornet, which you probably saw through various videos from WAGS. For nighttime and low visibility Case 3 recoveries in the DCS FA-18C Hornet, we have added, Eagle Dynamics is saying, the automatic carrier landing system, or ACLS, that incorporates the Link 4 data link, or DL, that allows two-way communications between the aircraft, the carrier, and the aircraft beacon. When used with the Supercarrier, this allows direction to the Marshall stack and carrier with realistic radio voice communications. Now, Matt Wagner, of course, did an instructional video on the ACLS, and there's also one how to do it on the free carrier, the Stennis, as well, which runs slightly differently. According to the changelog, for the free model, only the couple PR mode is available. There's no traffic control as such, or, of course, the Supercarrier radio communications. It is possible to use the ACLS with the CVN 74 John C. Stennis if you do not own the Supercarrier module or carriers, but the free CVN Stennis will refuse the inbound call. So that means the Forrestal, in other words. The free carrier procedure is relatively simple. The call, of course, is inbound if you're closer than 5.5 miles and within the appropriate margins of plus or minus 630 feet, vertical error from 1,200 feet, plus or minus 5 degrees from landing course. Receive the ACL ready message, turn on the couple PR by pressing the couple button on the UFC. Now, they've added a bunch of other changes aside from this, including the additional mission header payload presets. They've corrected the auto throttle control approach mode such that it no longer moves the throttles to idle. They fixed the SA page, which was not showing ID of contacts known to the MIDS track. Latent track while scan unboxed removed all data link contact in the FCR. Selecting Barrow Alt Hold whilst in coupled autopilot deselects the coupled mode. The JDAM targets of opportunity 2 will now be saved when stepping stations, and 2 half. Autopilot disconnect caution was not implemented. The QNH is not set right when born on the carrier. Also fixed limits for pressure settings. Very cool. The air-to-ground radar image not showing units on the ground. There was ghost contacts in track while scan. Slant range has been fixed. Offset point mag true issue. The situational awareness cursor alignment is different if you come from top of contact or from bottom with the cursor. Waypoint OAP steering info in the HUD will direct towards the offset. HSI SA differences in orientation of offset symbology. Air-to-ground radar flashes when re-entering the radar attack ATTK page. Target IDs on the SA, AZ, EL have been fixed. LTDR special for joystick not working on imports. The SLAM ER data, link 13 with unlimited ammo guidance issues. Using feet for elevation data always rounds down the number. When using flare page, gray option on the DDI UFC is blanked but still works. When using JSOW gun is blank on the DDI but can still be pressed. Check north up behavior when using ADF. Bullseye coordinates preload, and the HMD J109 overlap PPP symbology. So a lot of fixes there for that particular aircraft. Now, in terms of the Supercarrier, they of course have added now these new deck crew animations that utilize the new skeletal animation system, new animations that are specific to night operations, and the inclusion of light wands, which are really cool. For the aircraft, deck crew, and objects on the roof at night, they have improved the lighting and shadows based on the deck and tower lights. On final approach, you'll now need to contend with the burble effect. They're continuing to tweak this particular feature and effect, so you can expect maybe some differences or changes. This is the first iteration, so I imagine some community feedback may see changes to that feature as it progresses. They've improved the sparks effect from the hook during landing. I haven't checked that out yet. And the Kuznetsov model has been updated. The flag back transparency issue and hole in the superstructure has been fixed. They probably need to add the thick clouds of black smoke that the engines produce right now in the real world. I believe the thing currently is in dry dock in the real world getting repairs. Who knows when it will be back out. I'm sure some people aren't disappointed to not see it in operation. They've also fixed the air boss and crewmen who were glowing at night. So some cool things there.
Contact. You're taking fuel.
Now, as previously mentioned in several videos from WAGs, they have done some additions and improvements to the Viper to include the primary data link track, which increases your situational awareness on selected data link contacts. They've done improvements of the visual, initial, and reference points, new delay fuse options, and the addition of the time DED page, updated cursor 0 options, more accurate radar and HSD symbols, and corrected Maverick cursor enable functions. If we go to the changelog itself for a little more detail, this is the full list of things that have been fixed. They've fixed things like crashes in avionics and weapons. They've added pull-up weapon fusing Q logic, low indication on the HUD, and there is a video for that apparently. There is a video for the added primary data link target, or PDLT. There is a video on the improved visual initial point and visual reference point, I think, behavior. They've improved the time DED page, as already mentioned. They've added offset aim points, OA1 and OA2. There's a video on that. They've adjusted the FCR and HSD symbols, a video on that. They've added destination to the DED page. There's a video on that. Added cursor 0, or CZ, to all targeting pods and the air-to-ground FCR pages, and when the radar is off. Additional ME presets loadout. There's a video on that. Fix the DED steer point TOS, which can now be edited. Ghost targets on the data link has been fixed. Locked target box moves if the modes are switched. Corrected. TMS left to interrogate target in dogfight mode drops the lock. That's been fixed. Maverick cursor enable doesn't cycle from visual, bore, or pre. Bugging target in range while scan when then switching to track while scan loses the bug. White cross on HSD when using air-to-ground mode is missing. The harm equations of motion, or EOM I believe it is, and targeting. They've fixed the harm targeting system not showing emitter in the correct location when locked. When the bullseye is not active, the bullseye symbol must not be present on the HSD because it is not related to any coordinates. Radio preset frequencies are off by 01. Second mark point creation if TMS aft was not used before backing out of the mark point page. HDS not functioning after rearm, and FCR tracks and IFF. All corrections there. So some really important updates to the Viper, which I'm sure many of you will be pleased to hear about. Now, the other aircraft, of course, that's still fairly, well, actually very new to the game, of course, is the Apache. And this also received quite a few updates this week as part of its ongoing development. Now, they've fixed some crashes and freezes in avionics, weapons, and multi-crew. They've improved the SCAS or SCAS, initial work on the velocity hold submode, improved the AI pilot when flying over and around terrain and obstacles such as trees, power lines, buildings, etc. Good stuff. Added trigger guard as an option. You may have seen this in the options list for I think it's in the special for this particular aircraft, and you'll need to see it in yes, it is in the special tabs options. They've added air targets tracking restriction for the AI. They've fixed some multi-crew issues here for the TADS desync from the CPG LMC using the Hellfires, missing targets in trajectory other than direct. Multi-crew rockets, one beam freezes in co-op mode with George. Multi-crew TADS was flickering. Multi-crew master arm states, which is good news. Fixed the cold start caution message errors. They've fixed rotor damage shake effect continues after the rotor has stopped. Hellfire attack on tank from front has no effect due to Hellfire hitting the gun barrel. Well, that's not good. There are some new livery files which are .tga instead of .dds, so they've corrected those. Master arm state isn't synchronized after auto switching to safe. Attitude hold exit tone is now shorter. Errors in the WCA and DEMIS pages desync between the pilot and the CPG. When starting APU with engines on, the utility hydraulic pressure drops to 0. Incorrect training mission 3 voiceover. The exhaust gas temperature showing incorrectly on the IHADS. Takeoff while refueling allows infinite fuel. Flight set alt does not accept altitude values above 1,428 feet. Request removal of outer tank hangs the program. Barometric altitude symbology on the cruise and flight pages should be in 10-foot increments. The ACQ source behavior has been corrected. NVG goggles do not save brightness settings. Wind direction velocity status window updated incorrectly. Head tracker symbology on the HGU was aligned too high. Kneeboard flares option cannot be changed on a moving ship. TSD map orientation settings, rotor sound glitch. RTS rocker does not function once the preset is selected. George AI as the CPG Hellfire accuracy issues have been resolved. Unable to set the radar alt on the flight page. Engine fire test audio, aft deck fire does not repeat. RWI calls SA-15 instead of F-15. Without the radar altimeter, George AI will attempt altitudes below ground level. That's not good. Greek livery description lure. TSD orientation effects on the TSD's ASE footprint display. Hover bob up box size was too small. In sight status field indication. The UFD fuel indication error. The limits of the altitude indicator should be plus or minus 90 degrees. Radar alt not functioning to on if cold start is used. G meter on the flight page only records minimum max and G when set to subpage. MPD brightness set before APU start does not dim the MPD. So as I said, the changelog this week is pretty extensive. And for brevity's sake, I won't touch on too much more, except to say I will put the link to the changelog in the description below if you're looking for more specific information pertaining to a particular airframe. Most of the aircraft in the game did receive some form of update, a couple more than others, as is often the way. So if you're interested in a specific thing, please refer to the changelog. Now remember too, we also had 2 new campaigns, and we've already mentioned these in a previous week. One, of course, was for the F-15B. This is Operation Sandworm, and it's the campaign by Sandman Simulations, and a new A-10C campaign known as Operation Agile Spear. This is by Combat King Simulations. So, you know, more variety is always good. Variety is the spice of life. And of course, we love that for DCS World. I'm going to turn now and have a little look at some really interesting news on the F-15E. Over the last few years, we've seen numerous snippets of RAZBAM's work in progress on the F-15E. It's the oft-requested, oft-demanded, and oft-complained about module due to its lack of appearance in the DCS world environment. The F-15C, its air superiority fighter cousin, is available as a non-clicky cockpit in-game, but once you've had the full fidelity modules going back to the simplified versions of complex aircraft, just doesn't float your biscuit. What you want is the adult version. Well, the wait for the F-15E Strike Eagle could very well be over if comments from Ron Zambrano, the head of RAZBAM, are to be believed in a recent interview with the Air Combat Experience team. He could not, he explained, be drawn down on a specific date, citing the complexity of the aircraft and the ongoing work that they keep adding to it. But he stated he was, and I quote, confident it would be in consumer hands this year. It's exciting news. It's the most definitive statement, too, from RAZBAM on the aircraft, which was described as a licensed Boeing product. An F-15E Strike Eagle Block 4 Plus is what we're looking at to be implemented in the game. Due to the aircraft's current use, he also indicated that the team are dancing a pretty thin red line over the content that is in the real aircraft being mimicked in the game. At this time, he described the aircraft is flyable. However, they are still working on a range of features to be included to ensure the best customer experience. These include new animations and also simulation of the powerful radar, which he described as being likely to blow people away, including things like the terrain mapping radar. We should see various traditionally available weapon loadouts, as the weapons available in-game are actually largely produced by Eagle Dynamics. I took this to mean that as long as the weapon is historically carried by the aircraft and is available in the game's arsenal, then the aircraft will of course be capable of carrying them. Don't expect at this time any new weapons created for the aircraft when it's released, nor it seems a joint helmet-mounted queuing system. The latter, though, may be introduced at a later stage and is of course available in the real aircraft. Initially, the aircraft was not intended to have any AI functionality, with 90% of the aircraft systems available to the front seat pilot. However, Ron indicated that things have changed as ED's product has evolved, and the team felt there was a need for some kind of AI for the back seat. It will not be like Jester, George, or Petrovich. Rather, it will be more of a tool, primarily in order to manage mission planning covered by the WISO, especially on-the-fly changes to react to different circumstances. He stipulated that his concept was still being fleshed out, and he couldn't be more specific. The two-seater configuration and interaction was something of a learning curve for the team, he admitted. This is of course expected, as several other teams have demonstrated the complexity of these systems, including ED's George and Petrovich systems, which are still ongoing in their in-game development, to be fair. We have of course been spoiled a little bit by the ease of use that the Jester system provides for the F-14 Tomcat, which of course is a heat blower product. He was careful to avoid creating unnecessary hype associated with the various features on the aircraft customers are likely to see, but emphasized the radar as one that will impress customers, as previously mentioned. They expect to be able to represent the squadrons flying the aircraft with the appropriate liveries associated with them, presumably at the time of release. There will of course be a targeting pod, although those hoping for a sniper pod will have to wait for ED once again to implement that particular sensor before the aircraft can carry it. Seeing the aircraft in-game will be a huge boost to players looking for a dedicated bombing machine, while also having the capable airframe the F-15E provides. While it shares considerable DNA with the original F-15 Eagle, the similarities are much more complex than the basic shape, with the addition of course of a WISO and strengthening of 60% of the airframe to handle the increased loads. It is effectively a different animal, and there's a good rundown of comparison between the airframes and respective roles from the Fighter Pilot podcast. If you want to know more about this incredible aircraft's history and performance, I'll put in a link to that below so you can check it out for yourself. RAZBAM are working on a range of other products too, and part of the interview covered the amazing work Ripper and Spectre have been doing on the South Atlantic map. At more than 3 million square miles, it will be the single biggest map in the game when it's released, and I have it on good authority will be an absolute treat. Progress on this is going well, considering the original island-based map was expanded to include part of a continent and encompasses hundreds of unique objects and scenery gleaned from satellite imagery for added realism. While I can't show you any pics in this particular video, I can tell you that I have been lucky enough to have access to the South Atlantic map and have been testing it over the last few months. It actually has given me a new appreciation for the work that goes on behind the scenes and how dedicated Spectre and Ripper have been on this project, which is years in the making, and of course they do receive quite a lot of help from many people who have contributed to the program as well, either through advice or bug fixing and so on and so forth. It's a massive project and they've done a tremendous job. I think you will be impressed with it, and do keep your eyes peeled for some upcoming videos on the map. And also, I'm aware that there is going to be another F-15E video from another content creator coming here very, very soon, so keep your eyes peeled. Like I said, there's some really cool stuff coming. Let me know what you think of the updates this week, particularly the new lighting effects on the Supercarrier, which I really enjoyed. The ACLS functions, of course, are neat, and of course any of the other topics discussed today as well. If you have an opinion on that, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment. It all helps support the channel. It really is a very exciting time to be a sim pilot in DCS world right now. We have so many cool things coming in DCS world in 2022. So even though at times real world events are pretty intrusive and distracting, it's nice to have some healthy distractions with this fantastic sim. So take care, and we'll see you next time on the DCS Situation Report.
Transfer complete. Disconnect.